Welcome once again to the Cow Report. Of course, I'm your host, Chuck Lee, and as usual, we have a lot to talk about in this kind of a muggy September 22nd, 1997. And tonight we have a special guest with us who came here to tell us a little bit about the upcoming school referendum that we've been reading about in the local Eau Claire Leader Telegram, and we've seen some news reports on the Channel 13 and Channel 18 News. And it's starting to heat up now since the election is coming up on October 4th, which is a Saturday, so it's highly unusual to have a Saturday election. But this one is a Saturday, and it is October 4th. With me tonight is not only Fred the True Stafford, my rusty, trusty sidekick.
Howdy.
But also Dennis Berry, and welcome to the program, Dennis.
Thanks, Chuck. Glad to be here.
And can you tell us again now what is the name of the group that you are representing tonight?
I am the chairman and spokesperson of Citizens for Responsible Government Spending, and we've been around for a couple of years. We successfully fought the library referendum and assisted with Lorraine Lee and her Stop committee on putting a hopeful end to the arena.
So you've had a few successes, and of course, when you live in an area like this where they seem to be constantly throwing new taxes at the homeowners of the area, it seems like you can never let your guard down because you let it. I mean, one battle's over and another one starts.
That's the way it's been for the last couple of years. We've been successful. We're able to get our side of the story out, and we've been successful, and we hope to keep it going.
Oh, great. Okay, well, I'm sure as most people will recognize if they have a mailbox or they get mail at their home, I'm sure every one of you has received this blue flyer. This is the only one I've received, but I'm sure you've received either this one or several other pieces of propaganda that the Eau Claire Area School District has put out. Being familiar with politics, this is considered a biased, one-sided political pamphlet, and it's basically it's pushing the reasons why the taxpayer should spend $38.95 million on facilities and a technology program in the upcoming referendum. That's what they're asking for on October 4th, is $38.95 million in taxes and bonds. And like I say, this is put out by the Eau Claire Area School District. It's obviously and blatantly a political campaign piece. If you're running for office, this is the kind of thing that you want to mail to every household in your district. And this is what has been mailed to every household in the Eau Claire School District area. School District. Now, personally, for me, I feel this is offensive because I pay taxes into that Eau Claire Area School District. But I did not agree to this, and like I say, I consider this a propaganda piece for the passage of this Saturday referendum. What's your take on it? What do you know about this piece?
I've actually got it in the mail 3 times. Received another one just today, which is good because I do a lot of writing on. It's not good actually, but yeah, to have that kind of resources. I mean, I'm afraid we have to scrounge for money from our resources, and I don't agree with it either, and I certainly don't agree with the money that I currently pay into the system to be able to, to basically put this together and be able to distribute it through the mail system. I mean, the cost just must be phenomenal. I mean, you'd never get anybody to tell you what the cost actually is, but the cost of them actually using our tax money to put this together and distributing it through the schools, sending it home with our children, getting it in the mail, and then the cost of the special election, it's just a slap in the face.
I wonder, has this been sent home with the kids too, besides getting mailed?
My one son did get, I think they got the technology. He brought this one home. And at every PTO meeting that we've had so far, I have children in 2 different schools, elementary school and middle school, and of course all the propaganda at the meetings when we're there for the organization PTO. We've been strong-armed with this as well at every meeting, so we're up against a pretty formidable opponent this time, and they've got obviously a pretty big budget.
Well, yeah, and I know there's some pretty heavy hitters behind behind this effort to push this through. They have vested interests. We can't really name names, but I feel that there are some people in right positions that are going to benefit by this being passed. Certain contractors, certain people that own certain pieces of property, insiders, the school people that work either directly for the Eau Claire Area School District or peripherally on the sidelines that have a vested interest in seeing this passed. And one portion of it, which I find interesting, and I brought up on the last program, was that they need $1 million to purchase. It just says your purchase third high school site. $1 million cool cash there. One with 6 zeros behind it. It says purchase third high school site. Now, if anyone puts 2 and 2 together, if you're going to buy land, what's going to be the next thing?
Yeah, that's...
What's going to happen after you buy $1 million worth of land?
You got to put a high school on it.
And what I've heard some different amounts of money bandied around as to how much a new high school costs, and just the renovation and to supposedly improve the Memorial High School is $7.4 million in this referendum, and to renovate and improve North High School is $6.7. Now that's just renovation. So we're talking $14 million just to renovate the 2 present high schools. What are we talking for a new high school? Have you heard any ballpark figures?
We've heard right now, actually, when they came before in the pre-meetings, the pre-referendum meetings, they were actually thinking of including that figure in with this referendum here on Saturday, October 4th, and they were looking at that, I believe it was $25-some million is going to be the next. They say this is the final phase of 3 phases, but to me that just can't be right. I mean, obviously there's got to be a phase 4 if you're going to take $1 million to buy a site. But and that's just today's dollars. That figure that they had thrown out at the meeting and got people, pretty excited about. That was 1997 dollars. So now they're looking at. I've actually heard them say that the need for the new high school won't be for 10 to 12 years. That could easily double.
Are we going to actually need a new high school in 10 to 12 years? Not
according to I have a copy of their current enrollment in the budget. And, with the numbers that have been coming out now with the birth rate down, our enrollments have actually been down the last 3 years. We're expected to level off quite dramatically here and stay right at the 3,600 student level. But at the same token, now they say, of course they say that, they put their spin on that, but then at the same time, the middle school enrollment is going to have a drastic drop of over 300 students. Well, I went to school. After you go from middle school, you go to high school. If there's going to be a 300 student decrease by the year 2002, they sure don't reflect it in their 2002 numbers for their high school projections. And why would they? Because they want us to think that we need the high school, but it's not going to happen. Those numbers are high.
Well, I know we had an influx in the early 80s, late 70s, early 80s of Asian immigrants from the Vietnam War. That it was kind of that whole group of youngsters. It was kind of like an egg going through a snake. And once the egg goes through the snake, then the snake goes back to normal. Well, now we're seeing that population is aging now. And I've just seen some statistics for the state of Wisconsin that say that statewide the enrollment is going to be decreasing several percentage points a year from now on. That the major influx of students into the school system is going to start declining instead of.
And along with that, I mean, as far as the future, the birth rate is also, showing a dramatic. Decrease, and with the end of welfare as we know it, that's just going to have to continue. And I sure don't want to be the property owner that's the proud owner of a third high school with not enough students to fill up the classrooms, because you still have to maintain it. You can't just give it back. Once we do it, once we pass, once you vote yes for this, it's a forever thing. You're paying for it forever. So.
Okay. Well, I was running some math the other night on the. took out a calculator. I don't know if our trusty pyrotechnical engineer Roy has a calculator out there, but I ran some math dividing. You know, you go out to Best Buy and you can get the best computer out there now for less than $3,000.
Yep.
I mean, with a 56K modem in it, all the latest technology, fabulous color monitor, keyboard, the works with probably 24 megs of RAM in it. The whole works in there for under $3,000 and probably closer to $2,500 or less.
Right.
Because and so if you take $2,500 and you divide that into the amount that they have for technology, which is $9.4 million, it came up to something like 3,500 computers at the price of $2,700 a piece. It was a ridiculous number of these brand new high-tech computers. But on the other hand, if you go ahead and you buy that many computers, I could get on the internet and buy 3,000 computers for probably $1,500. It would take care of the needs of this school district for many years to come. They might have to add a little memory, or maybe when there's a technology that has 112K modems, they might have to pull a 56K modem out, stick in a faster modem. But other than that, everything's in place. All you got to do is plug them things into a phone line, and you're on the internet. You're on the internet, the World Wide Web, the World Highway, which is wide open now to any kind of education you need. But it seems to me like this school system here wants to pour millions upon millions of dollars into bricks and mortar, going into a technology in the next century that's not calling for all the bricks and mortar. It's calling more of a technological type of an education. Do we really need, I heard you say on another program that it was a given that we possibly need to do some repairs and maybe replace a couple schools. Which schools in particular were you talking about?
Well, Boyd, from what I understand, and I haven't had a chance to go through it, Boyd is in not very good shape at all. The upkeep, the expense, it's actually costing us money to continue to operate that school from an operating expense. Everybody knows we're losing our lease on the school at Park Elementary School. I've done research, and I've actually have, when they built Lakeshore, I believe is the school down on Half Moon, it was said in that propaganda back then, the sheets that we got, that we need Lakeshore because we're losing Park Elementary School in 2001. Those students, that school has been built or was built to accommodate the 100 and some students that are at Park Elementary, but now we're saying that we want to replace a school. They're using Park for the second time to get that third ward vote down there to make them think they're going to get something that they're actually not going to. And don't be surprised when the school is built and you get the notice that your son or daughter is being bused to Lakeshore instead of the brand new school up there in Lee Park that they named after you, I think. And that's not where they're going to be going.
So they had a referendum, what, 5 years ago for
almost $28 million.
$28 million, and at that time they put out sheets saying that those schools would replace Park. Is that roughly?
That school would be built, a 3-section school that would accommodate the students that are attending Park Elementary School when our lease is up in the year 2001.
Okay, now what I want to know is, what are we doing leasing a school? Who owns it?
The University of Eau Claire owns that building, and they need the space, and they are not interested and not even negotiating at all with continuing that. And we've known that getting in, that we are eventually going to have to get out, and it served its purpose, and I think it served the neighborhood well. I mean, it's been real convenient for the people down there, but its time has come. I mean, it's getting real close here.
Okay, so it's a given that Boyd School is pushing 80 years old. It's probably obsolete.
Right.
And that is one of the elementary schools. They're also talking about closing down Cleghorn, or closing down the old school and building a brand new one. Is that
correct?
No, I think there may be, in the middle of the summer when all the tourists are in Cleghorn, there's only 100 people.
Yeah, it's, I don't understand their reasoning there either, and from what I understand, the people in Cleghorn are very, they're satisfied with the school the way it is. The school is actually going to be moved 8 miles from its current site to accommodate the development on the on the side,
Pleasant Valley
area. So they're actually going to, Cleghorn is actually going to lose their community school. It's going to be moved closer to Eau Claire. And, I'm not so sure that that actually needs to happen at this time either.
Well, I might not look it, but I'm old enough to that I can proudly say that I went to a 2-room elementary school. There was 4 rooms in the or 4 classes in one room and 4 in the other. We had actually at one time we had. We got a call coming in on line 1. We'll take in a second, but actually at one time when I first started there in the 1st grade, we had 6 grades, 1 through 6 in one room, and grades 7 through 12 in the other room. And but I've been out to Cleghorn School. It's not that big of a school, but it looked like it was in pretty good shape out there. I used to have a contract where I had to travel by there every day in the work that I was involved in, and looks like it's all right, but now they're going to actually take it out of the little town of Cleghorn. They're going to move it out in the country, so all the people in Cleghorn now are going to have to pick up and move and be bused. Okay, so that takes care of that. So they're going to replace Boyd and Park Elementary, and then they have these major additions to Memorial and North. And it seems to me when they got that $27 million, they did some improvements and renovations, and I think they just put a new roof on the auditorium there at Memorial.
Right, and they did some window work and they did some auditorium work. I don't think that rather very large price tag there actually does not include any sort of addition at all. Basically, it's just renovating. Memorial's going to be getting a new pool. At the cost of, I think the cost of that was over $2 million.
I know exactly why they're going to do that. I'll tell you in a minute. I used to work there at Memorial shortly. Go ahead, caller. You're on line 1.
I'd like to applaud your guest for trying to take on the school board. Most people that take on the school board either get torn apart or run out of town or both. But maybe he's got. What is the solution for this monstrosity that we've created? The Eau Claire School District, the school board. What are we going to do to get this under control? Is it 72 cents on the dollar that goes to wages, benefits for the teachers?
Well, you ask a very good question, caller, and I know that the present superintendent and his I don't know how independent they are, but it's his board or various boards have doubled the school budget in a little over 10 years.
Yeah, what are we going to do?
And you probably look back to what you were paying in taxes 10 years ago and what you're paying now. I'm sure your taxes have probably crept up there at a pretty healthy pace too, probably outstripping inflation. And that's a good question, Dennis. What are we going to do about this?
Well, I think a good start is voting no on October 4th and sending a clear message that the pie in the sky. I hate calling it that, but the school board is aimed too high on this, and they've made it an all or nothing referendum question here, where the people that need the school. I mean, my children go to. I'm fortunate enough. We built a house on the side of town where our children go to the new schools. And I think every child, the kids sitting in Boyd, should have every opportunity to sit in a good classroom environment like my children do. And the school board is basically is putting it to the taxpayers. It's all or nothing. We're going to get our 3rd high school site. We're going to get our $10 million in technology, and while we're at it, we'll build a couple new schools.
But what's the solution to put a stop to this?
Again, voting no on October 4th would be a good solution, and then we've got to get. I hate to clump the people together, but it's real depressing to be fighting this battle after battle after battle, and I'm a little bit guilty of it myself, but we just had a school board election here a few months ago. 2 individuals ran unopposed.
Well, but you have a bunch of like-minded people on the school board, and after this election, or this referendum, there'll just be something else coming up. We've had individuals on the school board that don't think like the others, but they run them out. With the cooperation of the Leader Telegram, they're run off the board.
Well, I've been saying for years what we need in this town besides a referendum.
Another paper.
What we need besides another paper and another referendum to fleece the taxpayers of another 25 or 50 or 75 million, what we need is a referendum within the school district that is going to make district voting possible, not having these at-large seats where the moneyed interest can pour the money in there, and just a certain segment of society has the elected officials. What I'm saying is go to district representation, whether it be 7 districts or 9 or 11, and it's going to make it harder for those special interests then to control all 9 or 11 seats. They might be able to control 3 or 4, but you're going to finally open it up, and it's going to be true democracy, and you're going to have district representation. You're going to have an actual variation of people that will be represented on the school board, and you're going to have more representation and more quality representation than just the vested moneyed interests that are pretty much in league with each other that control it now.
It sounds like a great idea. What does the guest think? Is there a small likelihood we could get that accomplished?
Without a doubt, as a matter of fact, I might as well mention it right now while I'm at it. After we hopefully successfully defeat this here and send this back to him to rework it, my next effort I've been thinking about, and we were going to do here actually a few months ago. I don't know if we'll be able to get it by the next election date, but I'm also looking at starting a campaign with signatures to get a referendum to actually eliminate the 5 at-large seats on the city council, because I don't feel well represented there. $10,000 will buy yourself a lot of advertising, a lot of TV time, a lot of radio time, and a seat on the Eau Claire City Council. And that's that's got to change. We just can't have that, and that's going to be the next battle. October 5th, we're going to be starting that and getting back to district representation on the City Council as well.
Is your group going to plan some type of attack through advertising for this next referendum coming up on October 5th?
On October 4th, yeah, we are going to, we had a meeting this evening, and we're looking for more people that are interested and feel the same way we do in protecting our checkbook here and getting some common sense back in this budget. But yeah, we're going to need all the help we can get. We hope to do some advertising and just get the word out there. And we've got a lot of work ahead of us, and we're running out of time.
Well, thanks a lot, caller, and the caller is right there. And I agree with you on the city council. We saw our form of government go from a democracy to a socialist type government, where it was this convoluted deal here where 5 are at large and 5 by district, and then this kind of this not really a mayor, but mayor, I called it Mayor Light at the time, where it wasn't really a mayor, but he was going to be the head of the council. And according to Lorraine Lee, that whole system was illegal according to the state legislation at that time, that the way they did it. But anyway, it seems clear that not only the city council needs to go back to district representation like it was, and according to Lorraine, they spent something like $100,000 to move that from districts to this convoluted system we have now. And of course, once again, the Leader Telegram played a major part in pushing that through. But what do you think about this district representation on the school district level, where it would be broke down into 7, 9, or 11 districts, an odd number, so that when you vote on things, or maybe it could be even, because you're going to give the superintendent a vote on those things too, but giving it so that say the North Siders are going to have their segment of town, and the central part of the district is going to have their segment, and what would you think about that?
That needs to be done. I mean, without a doubt. I mean, it just there's just no real accountability if that's not the way it is. I mean, like I said, anybody that's a pillar in the community that doesn't have a problem holding a fundraiser and raising money. And the way it's run right now, I mean, they're on. I mean,
if you cut it down to districts, I mean, when it's district representation, I mean, you live in that district. You're working.
That's right.
You're working that area. The people know you in those blocks in there, and they know you by first name, and you know their kids, and they know your kids, and it's actual district representation. And it seems like on the school level, you would get a more quality representation, where people would be more interested in the welfare of the children in the school system. But now it seems like it's loaded up with people from the south side. That's what I've always heard. The power structure is with people that are on that side of town. At least that's what they used to say about the city council. But I'm sure that if you looked into the backgrounds of the people on there now, it probably wouldn't be people from all sections of the
No,
school
it's
district
not.
would be represented. So there is areas of the district that are going with no representation at all.
That's right.
Okay, Fred, what do you think about this $48 million?
I don't
38,
think,
excuse me,
I don't
$39
think,
million.
I don't think we can afford it.
And that's a lot of money.
I was going to ask you, okay, how many students do we have now in the school system? And what is the budget
Broken down to,
for this year, for 97, I guess it'd be 97, 98?
the elementary enrollment right now in 1997 is projected at 5,034, going down, almost 150 students next year already as far as a projection.
So we're building into a declining enrollment.
Exactly.
And it's obvious by these are their records, right?
These are their numbers. I mean, these are their numbers. 1997 K through 12 total enrollment, 11,289 total enrollment. We're also seeing a very large decrease between this year and next year and the year after in the middle schools. And high school enrollment, like you said before, with the influx of the people there, we're seeing the increase here for a little while. But we know with the decrease in the middle school, the way it stands here, with what we're reading in the newspaper, as far as the birth rate decline, enrollment down statewide, there's every indication to believe it's going to continue going down.
Okay, we're going to take a call right now while you're looking up this year's budget. Go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
I was just wondering, I know that when they built Lakeview School, that they told us that the people at the Park School, that's where they were supposed to be going to now. They're telling us we got to rebuild Boyd in order to bring the Park School students up there. Now, I'm not saying that Boyd students don't need a new school, because they do, but I think we can find a better place or a better situation for it to get done.
Uh-huh.
What's your feeling there? I mean, they got a pretty big piece of land right there where the Boyd School is now that they can use.
Well, I was at a meeting Thursday night with Dr. Hansen at North Star Elementary School, and they said basically it's between two sites, the site across from the current Boyd School, which would be the ice rink as I refer to it, and they also have available to them the old Unioil parking lot. And he's steering away from that. He was very honest. It was very informative meeting. There was a lot of information, and there's some excavating problems there where they're saying now that might not be doable. So then what we need to do is we need to go up on Lee Street and tear down a park and 6 houses off the property tax rolls in addition to the $6 million to build a school. We have to tear down 6 people's homes to build a school when it could be very easily done right across the street. So they just I mean, time after time after time, they have just no regard at all for the general consensus and what people think in our checkbook. I've said it again and again. Over $50,000 to hold this special election on Saturday, October 4th. To get their hopeful result, they feel they have to do it on a Saturday. I feel that if they were told that a special election on a Saturday would cost $1 million, they would still do it.
Yep, I agree. How about and then my other question was on the technical end, on their updating of the computers and everything else. I know a few of the schools have already updated a lot of their stuff, and they're doing it through the PTA system and stuff like that, and they've got it up and running with no cost from the board at all. Now, how about those schools that are actually out there doing the work, trying to help the students in their area? How come those people are going to have to be double billed and have to pay to help the other schools? It's just areas that aren't willing to do this.
Yeah, I agree totally. I know Longfellow School did that. I believe the computers at Northwoods Elementary School, where my children go, were purchased the same way with money. I mean, we're holding more and more fundraisers. I'm paying more and more taxes. And I don't mind doing that because the kids, they learn a little responsibility there, and we're able to purchase equipment they can use. But yeah, a lot of the schools have the technology. They're happy with it. I mean, sure, we could have a few more computers to get the ratio down a little bit. But I don't feel that the schools that have it, I mean, this $10 million is, I just don't think it's just not right.
Okay,
31 million is the current budget.
All right, the total school levy is 31.5 million. It was probably half that 10 years ago. I thought it was pushing more like 50. but that looks like that's what they're saying there. Okay, one thing that they seem to be scaring the public with is they're saying, hey, your students are going to unsafe and inadequate schools.
Right.
Okay, I'm sure in that budget there shows for maintenance, for fixing roofs, for janitors, for carpenters, for those type of things. I mean, prevention and maintenance are things that you do with any building, right, and upkeep and stuff. And there was some people that said when they were pushing this $27 million referendum that they deliberately let some of them schools just go downhill so that it would look better on election day. And now they're saying here, it says in one of their propaganda pieces from the Vote Yes Committee, which is a front group for the school, for Hansen and his cronies down at the school district. There are many reasons to vote yes on October 4th. One of them is equitable, safe facilities. At present, not all of our district students attend schools that are physically adequate or even safe. Well, that's what maintenance and preventive maintenance is all about. Right. I mean, you maintain your home, you keep a roof on it, you fix the windows when they're broke, you make sure the floors don't have any holes in them so you trip, and that's those things should be built into a budget. But a lot of the viewers out there are under the impression that they don't know what this is. I mean, we have this budget where it's over $30 million a year, right, every year. And that budget is to take care of paying for the schools, paying for the teachers, upkeep and all that maintenance. Now this here is totally separate. This is $39 million, totally separate from the 30-some million that they're having coming in. This is a whole separate ball of wax, a separate amount of money that is just going to go for all of these fancy things that they want here. So you were saying earlier, you were saying, okay, it's a given that we need to repair some things. So what would be the best thing to do to make this an honest and equitable thing and an upright, outstanding thing that we're not going to hurt the children here? What would be the best thing to do on October 4th? And then afterwards, I mean,
vote against the...
Well, yeah, you have to vote no on this current proposal. You know,
this is too much. Is there too much fat in this thing?
This is 60% pork without it. I mean, this is embarrassing, actually. I mean, they've aimed so high here. If they had this split up into 3 referendum separate questions where you actually had an opportunity to go in and vote yes for the elementary, or yes for the secondary, or yes for the technology, this secondary education, the work to North Memorial and the technology would be shot down greatly. And in the elementary portion, the new schools, everybody drives by Boyd. I mean, everybody knows it looks, you know, it looks horrible. It's high maintenance. We need to get rid of it. It served its purpose. A lot of kids have gone through there. But no, instead they give it to us all or nothing. Here, vote on this. You know, this is the way it's going to be, and if you don't vote on this, well then when we come back next year it's going to cost $6.5 million to replace Boyd instead of $5 million, so then you should just vote for it now. Well, that's wrong. I mean, just because they put it here in front of you and just because they tell you this is what you have to do, common sense. I mean, this is just unaffordable. This is just unaffordable. We need to send it back to them. They need to have more fact-finding meetings where we can go in and tell them. Don't let them get together over coffee and donuts and decide by themselves why they think it was defeated, like they did the library referendum. Oh, well, we just think people didn't vote against it because they didn't serve adequate enough parking. No, people voted against the library because it was $200 a square foot specialized construction, and no one can afford that. We couldn't afford it, and this is the same thing.
Okay, we got another caller on the air. Go ahead, caller, you're on.
Hi, Chuck. Just calling to voice my vote on this referendum coming up. I'm against that thing. I think it's way too much money, and I just tuned in. But my question is, why are they trying to put this through with such a large amount of money? If we need something on a smaller scale, I'd go for that. But this is way too much. It's almost like white-collar crime, you know.
Well, it is definitely a large amount of money here, and why did they let Memorial and North deteriorate to the point where they need supposedly $14 million worth of renovation? Why wasn't that built into a yearly budget like anyone does with maintenance on any building? They build it in. That shows poor management.
And why isn't someone held accountable for that? Dr. Hansen at the meeting kind of gave an example of the cooking facilities at Memorial. that the poor cook at Memorial has to cook on a 40-year-old stove. We have an operating budget of $31 million a year, and someone 20 years ago couldn't have gave the cook a new stove?
Yeah.
You know, who's making the decisions? The most astounding thing I heard that night at Northwoods Elementary School, right out of the superintendent's mouth, was, we built Meadowview in 1988, which is a beautiful school on the south side. You know, we built it, we did it, we needed it. Someone made the decision not to spend $26,000. The classrooms are not air conditioned. At a brand new school built in 1988.
Yeah, there's something going on here. Have you got any meetings coming up where a guy can get involved to help out?
I think they're going to give my phone number there. Yeah, it's right there on the screen. You can give me a call. We had a meeting tonight. We're going to meet again at the library on Thursday night at 6:30. And you know, we've only got 2 weeks to do it, but we feel comfortable we can get the word out that this needs to be sent back and revised.
Yeah, I think there's something. I also heard a rumor that we're not the only district that's running into it. They're afraid of possibly our legislation doing something to stop these elections on these off times, and so they're probably trying to go for a big pact for fear that they ain't going to get anything later on, huh?
Well, there is legislation in Madison right now. A gentleman from Madison just sent me something in the mail, and there's legislation in Madison right now that's going to eliminate altogether Saturday special elections for school districts. There's been over 260 referendums passed in the state of Wisconsin ever since the governor opened up his mouth and promised 2/3 funding. And I was at the Oakwood Mall when I heard him say it's getting harder and harder and harder to pay for this. And it's not a promise to pay. It's a promise to pay. They just did it for the 2-year budget that they just passed. It's promised for that 2 years. If we vote for this and this passes 2 years from now, the governor, for however many reasons, if everything hits the fan, we've got a new president, and everything starts over and the state can't afford it, it's going to be real easy for them to pull
Well,
this.
if you live in Wisconsin, the economy up here is like the weather.
Exactly.
I mean, 1 year it's booming, then next year it's
Exactly. It could
it's
change,
bust.
and he could have to withdraw the offer, and we're stuck paying for 100%. Once we vote for this, we can't build half a school. We have to complete it, and also part of the legislation is once a bill or once a referendum has been defeated under the new proposed legislation, they're going to have to wait 1 year to come back. Now, for every day we wait, when this gets defeated on October 4th, and I hope it does, for every day we wait, the cost of replacing Boyden Park is going up. Construction costs are not going down. They will never go down. If they'd have did this right the first place, we could have built the school for $5.9. Now when it comes back, I'm going to be blamed for the extra $600,000 in cost because we voted no.
You're going to save the taxpayers $30 million.
Exactly, and I'm happy with that.
Well, maybe Hanson would consider taking a cut in wages to help out, huh?
I don't think that'll happen, but
I think his wages are just going in one direction, and that's up. Okay, so it's not the end of the world if this is voted down. In Stevens Point, they just tried to ramrod the same deal over there, and it got voted down. I think it was a Saturday referendum over there.
It was just a few weeks ago.
And the intelligent taxpayer said, hey, I'm paying enough. My house has cost me twice as much as Illinois homeowners and Minnesota homeowners, probably Michigan homeowners too. Why is Wisconsin paying such ridiculously high real estate taxes? Well, you look at it and you see that how much of the tax pie does the school district eat up?
A lot.
It's over 60%?
Over 60, yeah, over 60 cents.
60 cents on every buck is going into this black hole called the Eau Claire School District right now. And it's breaking the back of some people that own property.
It really is.
And
That's true.
it is. There's people that are deciding whether they're going to eat that this week or they're going to put back a few bucks to pay their taxes because, I don't know, if you're in real estate, I think, a little bit, and you don't give much for $100,000 anymore.
No, you sure don't.
And they gave some examples of what this is going to cost on a $100,000 house, and it just looks so lovely there. $125,000 house, which is probably a comfortable 3-bedroom home these days.
Right.
And they say the highest year cost is going to be $90. But this is $90 extra tacked on to what you're already paying. And with the new assessments that have just came through, this is going to be above and beyond the higher taxes that you're going to pay this year, next year, and the length of this bonding, which is what, 15 years?
Yeah.
Now, also, people are saying, well, we got to grab this money. This is free money. It's not free. This money doesn't grow on trees.
No,
This money came out of one pocket and was put in another pocket.
right.
It came out of my pocket and it was put in the pockets down there in Madison. And but it's still tax dollars. And it's just, you can shift it around and call it some other thing besides taxes, but it's still tax dollars, and it's still something that you, the taxpayer out there, are paying. And it's just going down one tube and coming back up another tube, but it's still the same tax money. Whether it comes back from Madison or it comes from Eau Claire out of the school system, out of the taxing authorities here.
You got another thing that's coming up too. They reassess the houses, and that's going to be added to their tax bill next
That's right.
year.
And I'm sure knowing
There's got to be more.
knowing the people that run this school system, they're not going to back off from bumping up their budget another 8 to 10% again on top of this.
It went up. Our taxes this year will reflect a $100 increase on a $100,000 home this year without this referendum. So you add that $100 again next year, they'll add another $100 on top of the $90, on top of the new assessment, on top of the new thing on the water bill.
On top of what the city's doing with all their special assessments.
And those special assessments for the new street in front of my house, it's getting out of hand.
Yeah, I know, I just got hit too. Go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Yeah, I'm a high school student at Memorial High School, and I just want to comment about the computer lab upstairs. I don't know if you're familiar with it. It's a Macintosh lab, and it's got the internet. And my main concern is that through experience, I know that this computer lab is just a joke, because anytime we go up there to go on the internet, the teacher uses it basically as an easy teaching day, and basically all we do is just play around on the internet. And I just don't think that the money that's spent on this is actually going towards helping our education. And I think that any further spending on technology is just a waste, because technology doesn't teach people. It's actually studying, and the teachers teach people. And I think that
Exactly right.
these new computer labs and everything else is just a big waste of money. I know this through experience. So.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, you bring up some good points there now. You're at Memorial?
Yes.
And you have a computer lab there, but there's also other computers scattered out throughout the whole school building there, isn't there?
Right. We have I know of 3 labs. There's a PC one downstairs and a drafting one, and then there's a Macintosh lab which has computer access for all of the students. And there's also, that lab is also used for science and math, and they've got this math program on there that, I remember going in there and working on it, and to be quite honest with you, I think that when a teacher writes notes up on the board, you learn more about what you're doing than actually doing it on the computer. The computer makes it a game and makes things fun, but, fun, you can't always have fun while you're learning, and I just don't think that it's an efficient way to learn, and I just see it as a big waste of money. It's just, I think the teachers like it because it's just an easy way of getting out of class, sit the kids in front of a computer and let them go, and make them, droids, and I've got big concerns about that.
I agree.
Well, thanks a lot for your input, caller. So I think probably every school in the system now has some sort of a computer setup
Oh, my son goes to North
in the
Star.
elementary level.
And he's on the internet. He gets to school every day. He emails me something first thing in the morning, hi, and this and that. And I don't want my kids to go to school to be taught by a computer. I don't want to, and I just don't want that. I want the teachers. It's a school's responsibility to teach my children the basics, what they need to go through life. It's not the school's responsibility to make sure it's my responsibility. If I can afford it, my children will have the internet access at home if I think it'll help them in any way, shape, or form, and we do have it and they do use it. But I don't think it's a school's responsibility to spend $10 million to get these guys connected. It just boggles my mind. I mean, it's such a and once they get this online, once they spend this $9 million, this $9 million is buying us 2,000 computers. That's all it's buying. That's what they're buying. 2,000 computers. They have the deal, and You know as well as anybody, once you buy this thing, you go out to Best Buy, you buy that machine or wherever you get it. Once you plug it in, once you get it home and open the box, it's outdated. There's something you can put in that computer to make that better than it was 5 minutes ago when you just bought it and drove it home.
So you're going to have to buy 2,000 modems and
Exactly.
2,000 more chips.
In computer, you know, schools just can't buy one set of software. Every computer has to have its own set. This $9 million will have such a phenomenal dollar maintenance value that's going to have to go along with this $9 million. I don't know, and I'd hate to say a number, but I think this $9 million, if this gets passed on October 4th, could add $2 million to our next year's school budget every year, just to keep up.
That's not reflected here. This is just a
Of course not.
one-shot deal.
This is just a one-shot deal to buy it.
Yeah.
These teachers are not programmers. These computers go down, they break.
Software gets obsolete
Software
real quick.
gets obsolete real quick. You buy WordPerfect 7, WordPerfect 8's in the next Sunday paper. But this $9 million is going to add a substantial amount of money to the budget just for upkeep alone.
It's probably not reflected in here, all the people are going to have to hire to maintain and teach.
You know, I asked Dr. Hansen how much staff are we going to have to add to take care of this? He said none.
Huh.
He said none. We have staff on hand that'll be able to take care of this.
So there's staff now that's not doing anything.
Apparently not, because we don't have the 2,000 computers that they're going to need
Right.
to. Yeah, so
he's
don't.
admitting that he's got a bloated staff. That was quite an admission on his part.
That was.
But you look at the school budget there, and you can see that it's bloated. Okay, have you been in contact with the folks over at Stevens Point that fought that and
No, I
killed
haven't.
that system?
I got a couple newspaper articles that someone did send to me, but we didn't.
Well, you know, unfortunately, Madison opened up Pandora's box here when they said, hey, we're going to have all this money available, just pass these pass these referendums, so hey, the folks back home, they bought into it.
Right.
260 referendums are passed.
Right.
Now these got to be paid for. Plus, how many more are down in the pipeline that
A
are
lot.
like this one here that's coming up October 4th? How many more are in the pipeline that are coming behind that?
Or where's the end? I mean, in every school district, I mean, there's 72 counties.
I'll tell you right now that Dave Zine and Governor Thompson are both getting nervous.
Oh,
They're both shaking in their boots because they signed on to this deal, and now they're saying, hey, maybe we went too far.
Yeah, I would.
Because too many people took advantage of a free ride, of a
It
free
looked like
deal.
a good deal at the time, but boy, when so many people jumped on the train, it's slowing down.
Okay, we better take a caller. Go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Hi, am I allowed to agree with you?
You sure are. That's what this program's all about. We'll take, whether you agree or disagree, go ahead and speak.
Well,
What's on your mind?
the point you made was that they're coming out with information that's going to add so much per year to a person's property taxes. And that is probably not really written in stone because, as you also pointed out, there are going to be other costs in addition to that $90 or whatever they're talking about. And the reason why I say this is because actually I don't live in Eau Claire. I live in Altoona. And we built a nice new high school in the late 80s. And at the same time, and incidentally, I think we probably did need it, but at that time they were talking about the effect it was going to have on property taxes. And it was only going to be a relatively small amount per year. And a few years later, it turns out that there was a really big rise in property taxes. Evidently, there are a lot of attendant costs that go along with running a new school, far in excess of just the costs of what they say it is to build it. So if you fall for that line that it's going to add $90 or whatever they say to your property taxes, you've got to consider it's going to cost actually a lot more than that. And it certainly did in Altoona. I don't know how much. I don't know if anybody can figure it out how much additional costs came just from the fact that we had another school building to take care of, a new school. But there certainly are extra costs, and there are going to be extra people that have to be paid, not just teachers and administrators, but also the people who actually look after the building. So I hope that people will take notice of that fact, that when they say it's about $90 a year extra, that's sort of a starting point. It's actually going to cost quite a bit more.
Well, it definitely is with inflation, and everything is going up, but I can attest to what happened in Altoona. I bought a couple of lots over there that I was going to, well, that I invested in and hopefully to build, but as I saw them building the new school system over there, and all of a sudden they started reassessing my land every 1 or 2 years. The taxes almost doubled on those 2 lots. I said, hey, enough, this is going nowhere but up, and I sold them and got out of there because it just was nonstop. They just kept reassessing and then bumping the taxes up all the time to pay for these glamorous spending programs that they just seem to keep putting on tap, one right after another. And it comes to a point where the taxpayer can only afford so much. And you can only have so much on your table and on your plate at one time that you can digest properly. And this here looks like they're going for a Cadillac instead of a Chevy.
Well, you know, don't go ahead.
When I ran for the school board, and this goes back 8 years ago or so, 10 years ago, a number of the people that I met were forced out of their homes because they couldn't pay the increase in taxes that they were getting.
That was a number of years ago, Fred. There's been
Right.
a lot more taxes under the old bridge there since then.
I think what I'd like to touch on also, Chuck, is the Saturday referendum thing. You know, they want you to be a I can't believe that happened, huh? Sorry about that.
It's all right.
What they really, you know, would like for you to be is gone. And, you know, as a matter of fact, I'm going to be gone on Saturday, October 4th. I'm not going to be here. Absentee vote. I mean, if it's an inconvenience, then that's exactly what they've wanted to do. Go down to City Hall, get yourself an absentee ballot, cast it right there, vote. You can't. To vote for this the way it is gonna keep people away from Eau Claire. It's gonna keep my sons and daughters, you know, it's gonna run them out of Eau Claire because they're not gonna be able to afford to live here. And once this cost is added, call City Hall, get an absentee ballot. If you don't feel like taking care of something like this on a Saturday, it's rude. I can't believe they're even allowed, and hopefully this law will pass where this won't happen. The expense is phenomenal. Over $50,000 to do it. They'd do it if it was $1 million because they want to get their result, and they think statistics show they can get that result on a Saturday election. Call and get an absentee ballot, cast it, and you know, be done with it. Do it tomorrow.
Let's see, what do they have, up to a week before the election to cast an absentee? Or
I believe
I think there's
is
a deadline, something, a few days before the election.
Right.
So don't get caught off guard and think you can wait till 2 or 3 days ahead of time. Be safe, get down there in the next few days and vote absentee. And because this is a devious thing that they're doing by holding this on a Saturday. This is devious. They're wasting taxpayers' money, first of all, to do it. Not only are they spending $50,000 just for the election themselves, but I would venture to say that there's several $1,000s tied up in the printing, the labor, the distribution, and the postage. I mean, this wasn't mailed for free.
No.
If they mailed 10,000 of these went out at 15, 16 cents a piece. But there was somebody that sat down at a computer and put all this together. There was somebody then that took it to a printer and had it all printed. There's printing costs, unless they did it internally. But then they're using taxpayers' purchased equipment to do that. So they're the opposition. This is not fair to the opposition because they're taking the opposition's tax money to put out the propaganda for just one side to say, yes, you vote for this because this is what we want you to do, and it looks so glamorous. We're sending you out this beautiful piece of literature, but not only that. I would venture to say that there's also another front group that's pushing this thing. And that front group is a group that's putting out a paper that just happened to come out in the last few months. It's volume 1, number 6. But the headline on their propaganda piece, and this is outside of just about every grocery store and anywhere where crowds are gathering, you can find this propaganda piece with major headlines. It's up to you, fall referendum in depth, and it gives pretty much the same propaganda as this piece, but it's in a newspaper type form, so it looks more official, and it looks more like it's, hey, there's another group out there that's backing it too, not just the school board, but this independent newspaper, they're backing it too. Newspapers never lie.
And they were nice enough to call me the day before they went to press to ask me if I had something to add or if I wanted to be included in the course at that late. I mean, I had literally hours to come up with something, and
this is a front group for the pro referendum. It's just a front group.
It appears that way.
Okay, we'll take another caller here. Go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Hi, I just got comments. First of all, the majority of the democratic nations in the world have their elections on either Saturday or Sunday because they get a lot better turnout than we do, and I think probably that's a good idea. Second, I didn't know that they'd had special assessments on Black Avenue. There was a complaint about a special assessment in front of your home. That street hasn't been special assessed. Thanks.
I don't live on Black Avenue.
I do.
Oh.
I don't think I mentioned that.
Oh. So anyway.
One of my fans.
Oh. Well, whatever. In this country, we have elections on the first Tuesday after the first Monday in November, and we have since the beginning of this country. And this here was cunningly devised by this school district because they crunched the numbers and they said, hey, we'll catch them off guard. A lot of people will be out of town. Our people will be there because we have a lot of people that are vested in this. A lot of people that will benefit from this in one way or another. A lot of teachers that are in the union. So I'm sure the unions are behind this too on this deal. And but the thing is, we got to do the same thing they did in Stevens Point. We got to say the taxpayers, the taxpayers out there are the ones that are going to be voting on this. You have to say, hey, this is too much. Go back to the drawing boards. Don't go to one of your private retreats on the weekend and eat steaks and party and drink your booze and then come up, hatch an idea like this. But go back to the drawing boards with more public input into it and come back with a reasonable, honest, and fair referendum and put it on a Tuesday so that it doesn't look like you're trying to pull a fast one on the voters. And then come back to us with something that is more realistic. That's not going to hit our pocketbook this hard. Because, like you say, with that many of these referendums out there, the state is not going to be able to cover this 2/3 that they promised.
It's going to be impossible.
Okay, we'll take one more call, and then looks like they're saying that we only have a few minutes left. Okay, yeah. Dennis, the Loyal Order of the Raccoons. That is a secret order that we have here on the call report. And we're going to present you with a certificate making you a Loyal Order of the Raccoons, and this was presented to Dennis Berry, date 9/22/97. You are now officially a Loyal Order of the Raccoons member.
I'm honored.
And do you have any parting words on the referendum, or what should be done now? Should we get out and vote?
Yes, everybody, you need to get out and vote on Saturday, October 4th. If it's inconvenient, if you're going to be out of town, go down, call the city clerk's office, take care of it tomorrow. Pat, you can register your vote tomorrow. I mean, you can just do it right there in the office. They'll mail it to you. If you're a senior citizen and it's a terrible inconvenience for you to get down there, call down there, have them mail you one, send it back to them. Let's take care of the needs of the kids, not the wishes of this upper 1/2 of 1% that comes up with these, that hatches these things on the weekend resorts, at the resorts and stuff. And let's send this back to them and tell them to get back to reality.
Okay, and anybody in the school district can go down to the city or here, or do they, I think the school district encompasses more than just the city limits.
Oh, sure.
So they might have to go to their township or maybe even to the county clerk to
No, I think
vote,
they
or is
actually...
it all in one spot?
No, it's not. It's going to be where you normally vote in your township is where that's why this election is going to be so expensive, because the people in the town of Washington, there's even part of the Eau Claire School District is in the city of Altoona. I mean, there's going to be so many voting hoops out there.
Yeah,
but basically,
right there.
if your voters within the city limits in the Eau Claire School District, all you have to do is contact the city clerk's office at South Barwell Street, where their office is, City Hall, or you can call the elections office at 839-4913 for absentee ballot information, and they'll be more than happy to get it out to you.
And once again, you can give your number for people that want to contact you to get involved in the Stop This.
Sure. 831-1718 is my home phone, and if you're interested in helping out, we need all the help we can get. Just give me a call.
And the name of the group once again is?
Citizens for Responsible Government Spending. We've been around for 2 years. We're 2-0 and hoping to go 3-0.
All right, well, we're glad to see somebody's out there fighting tooth and nail against the tax rapists. Thanks a lot, and once again, we want to thank you very much for tuning into the Cow Report. We'll see you again right here next time. Adios, amigos and amigettes.
State